Cool, great. Well, first of all, welcome, Daniel. It's great to have you join us to discuss revenue ops session today. The concept has been hanging around in a few different places. So for me, I haven't heard anything. I came mostly from a consumer background. I haven't heard of revenue ops until pretty deep in the Grammarly time when the B2B function was kicking off in full force, right? So in recent years, as more companies are betting on enterprise, are betting on the larger spenders, the sales and revenue ops definitely come out of the media and the discussion a lot more. So yeah, today it will be great to demystify what exactly does revenue ops do, and especially for a lot of startups that are building the B2B engine, right? It's important for them to understand different functions because most people probably see sales, they see the marketing, but the functions behind the scenes are a lot less visible, but super critical. So there you go. Yeah, how about we can start with the intro from you, and then we can dive down step by step to understand what the revenue ops does exactly.
Yeah, thank you, Bei and Holly. Thank you for having me. My name is Daniel Hu. I have been the head of operations for Unifor and Touring Video. Currently, I'm a consultant or revenue operation consultant serving startup companies. I started my career in corporate strategy and later rotated to sales operation functions. And after that, I delved into the startup world. I have been with 4 startups so far, and I always have been the operator assisting either the CEO or the general manager of the business unit. Although the corporate and the startup world feels completely different, I do find the strategic operator mindset carry through. It allows me to help startups find product market fit and embark on growth. My most memorable achievement was at a touring video where I leveraged the revenue operation mindset and helped the company propel beyond $30 million revenue. And happy to share some of my learnings and tricks there.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Right. So maybe we can start with some of the success you have achieved in the past, right? And then we can dive into the definition of the role. Right.
Sure. So 2 major success. Number one is at the touring video, I was able to help the company find the product market fit through a operationalized search. Because touring video had a technology focusing on video recognition, detecting person, activity, occupancy, and so on and so forth. It belongs to the last generation of AI technology. When I joined the company, it doesn't have a target customer segment yet. It was experimenting with several markets. So when I joined the founder-led sales as a strategic partner. While the founder focused on selling, I focused on validating the product value proposition, the business model, the use case, and so on and so forth. So instead of relying on trial and error approach, we try to operationalize by distilling the learnings into frameworks, criteria that help our search. And as we continue to meet with customers, we update the criteria. So the end result is that we have a sales process that has an increasing win rate, and every customer engagement brings us a step closer to finding product market fit. So this effort eventually led us to the launch of facility management solutions targeting shopping malls and retail spaces. And the second achievement I feel strongly about at the touring video is that I was able to set up the infrastructure, process, and systems to support the company's growth. That include sales process and cross-functional collaboration process involving many different functions. I also built the revenue operation team, when I left the company, it has about 12 employees. We have a system that help the company identify the prospect customers and walk them through the life cycle. And we build a cadence that help the company run with rigor. Every week, we will have a deal review meeting. We'll have a pipeline forecast meeting. So those are the things that help the company grow. Looking back, I think the relentless validation that we did at the beginning helped a lot. That includes mapping out the value proposition, customer journey, and all the assumptions behind. And also we try to operationalize the learnings by converting what works into protocols and processes and just try to replicate the success. And lastly, we are on the lookout for opportunities to improve.
Sounds good. So that's a lot, right? That's a lot of functions you are covering as a revenue operation, right? Sounds like I heard a lot of things related to the strategy, the planning, and also there's analytics, there's the optimization part, right? You almost feel like there's a multiple hats you're wearing for the function. So maybe take a step back before we. Sounds like the Turing video has the most learnings and examples, so we'll probably come back to that one. But if we take a step back, let us know how to define the revenue ops, right? What exactly does the revenue ops role cover in a B2B company? And also I'm curious on, right, organization wise, how does the revenue ops fit into the entire sales? So if you can also, touch on a few of the key partners so we understand a little bit more about the interactions, that would be great.
Yeah, Bei, that was a great question. As you have sensed, revenue operation has a really wide spectrum of responsibilities. Its scope continues to evolve today. It started as a sales operation, basically covering the data, process, and system and automation aspect of enterprise sales so that the sales team can focus on selling. And later on, sales operation expands into a revenue operation to include the back end of marketing and customer success. In terms of responsibilities, revenue operation has the three main pillars: planning, system and process, and analytics, as you said. So planning includes territory design, sales capacity design, forecasting, and even compensation. And system and process, this is a little bit of a technical aspect of a revenue operation. It includes automation, implementation of a sales process in CRM, and deal desk activities, and even the order to cash process that involves the finance team. Analytics team is also very broad. That could include the win-loss analysis, the channel attribution, and sometimes revenue operation also take over the tasks to run quarterly business review with customers and with internal teams. Nowadays, a lot of product-led growth companies and B2C companies are also leveraging revenue operations to manage customer lifecycle and breaking down silos and etc. In terms of who revenue operations partner with or who they support, I would say the first priority is to support the revenue leader. In more established company, it is the CRO. If the company is still in the stage of founder-led sales, then the partner will be CEO. A lot of times, the revenue operation folks will fill in for the CRO to run forecast calls, to drive process adoption, to reinforce sales methodology, and so on and so forth. Revenue operation also directly support the go-to-market teams that includes sales, marketing, and customer success. For example, if we were to work with the marketing team, we may work together to define a lead routing process We may set up a email automation system, and so on and so forth. We also work closely with the finance team. And in addition to these 2 points, I think for B2B startups, revenue operation also takes on additional responsibilities beyond its traditional scope, which is facilitating cross-functional collaboration. Because we're the ones working with the sales, we're the ones equipped with most firsthand information about the customer, about the market. So we're in a unique position to facilitate the collaboration of all internal stakeholders.
Got it. Well, that's a lot to take on. So I would like to double click on a few things on there, right? First of all, a clarification. When you mentioned CRO is the Chief Revenue Officer, just want to make sure, right? That's a typical B2B function. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's the Chief Revenue Officer. In terms of organization, sometimes some companies have revenue operation reporting directly into the CRO, and other companies have a revenue operation under the centralized operation function. So there's a different design in organization structure.
Got it. So the reason I'm asking is because in other orgs, the CRO stands for Chief Risk Officer in the financial. So it's good to it's good to level set. The other question is, right, it sounds like in the sales function, right, sales and revenue ops basically acts a lot of the catalyst, right, the super connector across the team, whereas there is a the go-to-market team that's handle the marketing function, as you said. So when you mentioned you had a team up to 12 folks. So when you hire, are they all called a revenue operation, or are they called a strategy or analyst, because, right, multiple functions your team was covering at the time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the 12 people, I basically have them in 3 buckets according to those 3 pillars of a revenue operation. I have a business analyst who covers the data and analytical aspect. I also have a CRM system administrator who doubles as a deal desk person, basically doing all the transaction and daily order flow stuff. And on top of it, I have a few folks who are project managers, who are coordinators, who run the meetings and organize initiatives such as account-based marketing campaigns, coordinating with the different functions. So as we discussed before, a revenue operation has a really wide scope of wide spectrum of scope, and it is continuing to adapt. And also, if we're in a B2B startup that doesn't have a centralized operation function, we sometimes take over the responsibility as the company's operation team. So there's a lot of ad hoc tasks as well.
Daniel, I'm actually curious, right? Like, so before revenue ops became a thing that we actually, as functional leaders, do a lot of these ourselves. So I remember, like someone on my team are just like managing our marketing systems and or like run many of the analytics or reporting and such. And I'm sure for sales, is typically like sales manager do a lot of the review deals and etc. in the past. Why do you think there's an emergence of revenue ops function in the recent years?
That's a great question, Holly. I think there are several reasons. Number one is, as I said before, revenue operations are carved out to allow the leaders of each function to focus on their core tasks. For sales, it's going to be selling, right? For marketing, it's going to be positioning, messaging, and the lead generation, and so on and so forth. So all the backend data handling, automation, and part of the analytics are carved out So this is one reason. The other reason is that a lot of companies nowadays are looking at the customer life cycle as a whole. They want to manage it in a unified process. So in this way, we try to think of marketing and sales and customer success as the team touching different part of a customer lifecycle. And we want to make sure the information passes through these teams without barrier. The practice, the touch of a customer remain consistent, and so on and so forth. And lastly, I think there's a need for a single source of truth, which means we want to connect the data from the marketing team, the sales team, and the customer success team. So I think those are the reasons behind this trend. When those go-to-market teams are going to share the same goal, while the operation portion are carved out into the revenue operation function.
They were going to say something. I was going to ask a follow-up question.
Go ahead.
So I'm curious, right? So you have people who mostly partner with marketing on marketing ops. You have people who mostly partner with sales in sales ops, and now like CS ops becoming a more popular. Do you see these roles report into the functional leaders? Marketing ops reporting to marketing instead of reporting into a marketing ops function, which is more of like a centralized structure, and the pros and cons around it.
Yeah, that's a great question, Holly. I think it depends on a number of factors. First of all, is the maturity or the stage of the company. At early stage, probably we don't have enough resource to dedicate to support each function, so they probably remain centralized. And as company grow bigger, these RevOps roles probably will specialize to cover the need for marketing, sales, and customer success separately. Besides that, I think the type of product also will make a difference. I can't think of an example on top of my head, but I do see some companies who run a lot of, it depends on the type of a product. We may place different emphasis on either marketing or customer success. So they will have a different weight. They will have a different power of saying. I've seen mature companies where customer success drive a large portion of their sales. So in that case, the emphasis will be on customer success, and there definitely will be a dedicated revenue operation team supporting customer success.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like if I look into Calendly, actually they have a chief revenue officer, and they have like a pretty large revenue ops team under that CRO that look into all the functions. So I see more and more companies adopting this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I echo on that. Is also the what I can remember when I was working in the Grammarly B2B function is the head of under the CRO, the head of revenue ops is definitely running the show, because at the time a lot of the sales process, right, the segmentation, the routing between the self-serve, mid-market, and the enterprise are very much of a to be defined process. So in that case, I'm actually doing the analytics function, as you said. I work with revenue ops, where revenue ops would have some initial top-down idea, whereas my team was helping validate, right, how to identify those information in the Salesforce and or in other databases, and we together put the playbook together for the sales team to execute and to validate. And later on, at some point, the part of the team on my team did actually spin off and merge into the revenue ops because they require a little bit more dedication, right? It became a specific sales analytics at the time, right? Sounds like I think you mentioned on that a little bit as well.
Yeah, that's a great example, Bei. I think one part of the revenue operations job is collaboration. We have many internal stakeholders. We sometimes need to support their activity. Sometimes we need to cover part of the daily tasks for them. And the key is to build a relationship with those internal partners. When we try to implement some internal processes, we also socialize the idea with the go-to-market teams and finance teams and so on. And we want to get their buy-in before implementing. So collaboration and the partnership is really a big part of a revenue operations job.
I see. Yeah, that's became to bring up some of the memory of the collaboration, because I do recall other than the collaboration between the planning and the analytics front, the other thing I was a part of also in the Grammarly B2B was the lead gen, right? I was working closer in the marketing team, and we were doing the lead gen, whereas with the revenue ops, we're definitely reviewing every week on Monday morning to say, hey, do you have enough of a lead up funnel leads, right, to fill all the pipelines, so that there's we hear feedback from the revenue ops on the conversion, right, on the down funnel, to understand should we work harder, right, on the marketing side, or are we good for next couple of weeks. So the other thing I also remember you said about the collaboration with the product marketing and the revenue ops, because at the time we were still double clicking on the actual value proposition, right? What exactly, because Grammarly was still going through the B2C and the B2B transition, a lot of value were shifting at the time, because the enterprise and the 2B care things very differently. So I do recall at the time the product marketing was also teaming up very closely with the revenue ops to conduct a lot of user insights, right? To understand the different preferences, what they care, what they not care, and when the product marketing team finalized the messaging and the playbook, that's when the revenue ops kind of took it over, right, to distribute and to lead conversations, and also making sure to work with the customer success team, making sure everyone share the same tone and the same messaging across the board, right? Does that sound consistent?
Totally. Yeah. So I think you're on the spot, Bei. I think one of the additional responsibility that revenue operation can take, especially in a startup environment, is to drive the organization learning and to disseminate the learning throughout the organization. By aggregating the insights, by sharing the learnings with different teams, it can drive the evolution of the learning about the market, about the customer. I also have an example to share that is out of my experience at a touring video. So at the early stage of the company, we wanted to find the target customer for its robot product. This robot can patrol the facility and detect abnormal activities. And the company believed this robot can be sold to security guard companies. The thinking behind it is, well, if they replace this human guard with this robot, they could potentially save a lot of cost, right? So the initial engagement with the security guard companies seems interesting. A lot of them showed interest. However, the conversion rate remains very low, and the sales cycle has been very long. So the company was facing the decision whether to pivot to other segments or to continue engaging with this segment. But we don't have enough evidence or data to support a decision either way. So what I did is I stepped in and tried to lay out all the basic assumptions behind this conclusion that the security guard companies are a good target segment for this product, and try to validate them during my engagement with the customers when I joined the founder. Eventually, we found the assumption that the guard companies care about the cost was wrong, because they have a pricing power. They could pass this cost downstream to their customers. So this discovery helped the company make the decision to pivot to other segments. Although this example seems like a simple validation, right? But if we haven't picked it out and really make a deliberate effort to validate it, we would have wasted a lot of time on an unfit customer segment. So by sharing this example, I wanted to echo what you said. Revenue operation can take over the responsibility of disseminate the learning throughout the organization.
All right. Yeah, that's a good example. It certainly assemble a few different roles and solve the problem at the highest altitude, right? So maybe this is where I want to click on what Holly was asking. Because I certainly feel at some point I'm probably doing part of the revenue ops job without even knowing it, right? And that's okay, because the company evolves. It's a pretty fluid transition over time. Maybe use your touring video example on like stages, right? When in the beginning, right, when companies are starting, it's definitely, as you said, founder-led sales, and then the founder would probably launch a few initial marketings and maybe at some point hire a head of sales or a head of marketing, right? And then head of sales and head of marketing are going to tackle a lot of things, as you said. So at what point should they consider to bring a dedicated revenue ops person? Also, as you mentioned, right, to focus on maybe potentially freeing up time from the marketing and sales. Is there a clear sign or trigger, or it's kind of depends, right? You can have it in day one. It would work out anyway.
I would say, well, based on my experience, I would believe revenue operations can come in on day one and make a contribution. Even if there is no steady revenue stream yet, this revenue op person can serve as a market validation person, join the founder-led sales, and try to lay out all the assumptions and carry out the validation. And when the company has a marketing person and a salesperson, I think that's the point where revenue operation person can start his work. There are several things that the revenue operation can get started with. Number one is to build a sales process and some basic marketing automation, like the email outreach and stuff. And most often, when the company gets started on generating revenue, there is no marketing sales collaboration protocols. For example, how do you define a marketing qualified lead, right? Different company has a different definition. So it is essential to clarify that and establish a lead routing protocol between marketing and sales and how they hand off the leads, right? And also, it is valuable to establish a single source of truth if you have a data repository. And when you have sales activities going, it is necessary to build a cadence. What I mean by that is the weekly forecast calls and weekly deal reviews. So during the forecast meetings, we could look at what has changed from the last week to this week. What are the drivers behind the deals? Is there anything that requires the management's attention to unblock, right? During the deal review calls, we could look at the past win and loss. We could decide on the deal strategy going forward for the ongoing opportunities. So I believe those are the several things that revenue operation can get started and achieve some quick wins.
Yeah, you're probably highlighting some of the gaps here, right? I rarely see, or is that what you see though, right? All the functions seems very critical for B2B startup to begin with, but I rarely see when founders are starting those companies, they would have a dedicated revenue ops function. They probably not even
Right. No.
how many are even aware, right? Is that maybe can you double click on that one, right? Do you think this is more of a awareness broadly in the market, or do you think this is more of a maybe affordability, right? Because founder definitely in the beginning, founder tend to do a lot of things, and also right is that you have your own consultancy. You're also a member of the ExponentialX team, right? Good to have you. So what's your feeling about the market reality, right? And what's your thoughts on like potentially filling the gap?
Yeah, so the affordability issue is definitely there. When the company gets started, definitely there's no budget to hire a dedicated revenue operation person, or not to mention a revenue operation team. So a lot of times someone has to take on this responsibility of laying out all the assumptions, the business models, and everything that needs to be validated. And it is a discipline that the company needs to carry out sooner or later. Whether the founder has the bandwidth to do that, I don't know, but it takes a different perspective. As I mentioned before, when the founders are engaging with customers, his first priority may be closing the deal. So he needs someone to sit beside him and try to, generate learnings from those conversations to validate whether my product is creating enough value for the customer. Does this fit his requirement? Is there any barrier that he would encounter if he tried to adopt our product and stuff like that? Someone needs to do that job. It doesn't have to be a dedicated revenue operation person, or it could be a strategy partner for the founder. So I would say at the very beginning, hiring a consultant is definitely a way to get started on carrying out those disciplines and document your learnings into processes and into something that you can disseminate throughout the organization. It is an important thing to do, but it doesn't have to happen under the canopy of revenue operations.
Daniel, I want to follow up on this because there aren't a lot of revenue ops consultant or advisor out there. It's relatively new.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So, like, revenue ops sounds like a function that is so closely related to the business that you want to be there day to day. What would a revenue ops consultant or advisor look like? What are the formats? Do you see people who do this work to partner with companies?
So Holly, are you asking what type of experience does the person need in order to become a revenue operation consultant, or what is the typical scope of revenue operation consultant?
Yeah, the latter.
The latter, okay. So what I've seen, what a revenue operation consultant typically do is this person will come into the company and conduct an audit of the revenue operations along 3 dimensions, right? Number 1, system and process. Number 2, data. And number 3, organization and team. Number 4, cadence. So he will do an assessment along these lines and come up with recommendations for a architecture or infrastructure that suits the current stage of the company. So that's the strategic advisor part of revenue operation consultant. Of course, he or she could convert into a fractional leadership where he or she will lead the execution of a project, lead the implementation of a process, and so on and so forth.
Got it. Yeah, that's definitely need a little bit of more education on the market, I think, right? So to Holly's point, it's very few. It's not often mentioned. So maybe there's a benefit of awareness, letting a lot of the early stage founders know a role like this exists. So there's I think some folks I knew were mainly getting advice from other founders, right? So the founders, so probably the more seasoned founders are kind of doing this consultancy or advisor again, right? Without knowing it, but it's good to have a dedication there.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I think Holly and Bei, both of you bring up a very good point. So right now, the scope or the responsibility of a revenue operation function is still not 100% defined. It continues to evolve, and it sometimes can be very broad to include stuff like sales training and enablement, compensation, design, and those kind of things. So a lot of clients, when they try to look for a revenue operation consultant, they don't have a clear of the scope. So it is up to the consultant to define the scope and according to the customer's need. And also whether the revenue operations report into each individual functions or a centralized RevOps team, that is also evolving. So revenue operation is a relatively new function. It has become popular in the last 10 years or so. And I think a lot of things are still evolving. We'll just have to figure out a scope that is best fit for the customer's need.
That's super interesting. Like I can see, like you said, if it's early stage company, they maybe don't know what a revenue ops could do, or maybe like the scope is not enough to hire a full-time team, and that they can have a revenue ops consultant to come in as in the interim to set up the foundation before they hire a full-time dedicated person. Or it could be that they are facing a particular challenge that they cannot solve internally. For example, if their Salesforce instance is a mess and they can hire a revenue ops person to come to fix it, and more like on the project or a pain point basis. Is that what you see typically, like the type of projects you do?
Yes. So by definition, revenue operations is only designed for later stage of the company, after the company started generating revenue, have dedicated sales, marketing, and other GTM teams, right? But I would believe for early stage startups, they could also leverage the revenue operation mindset to put in the validation early to try to document their business model and just to get started over there. It doesn't necessarily related to generating revenue, but it also it helps set the foundation for the company to find its product market fit and the growth later. Holly, to your point, when a consultant engage with company, there could be a different type of a request. For example, one of my clients, they asked me to come in to look at their system setup in order to resolve a data silo problem. So this is an early stage company. They have a Salesforce system set up. On top of it, they also have a CPQ system set up, which means the CPQ stands for configuration, pricing, and quotation system. So this system will help them generate very detailed orders. But the problem is that after implementing the CPQ system, all the details of the order will reside in a different system, not in the CRM anymore. This make it very difficult for the company to run product level analytics. Yeah, so this is one of the examples that the early stage company are facing. The problem that the early stage companies are facing in terms of the system setup.
That resonates. I have seen companies have, so the three roles almost I see, like one is analytics, one is like a data engineering, and then the third one is like
data system and setup.
Yeah, it's oftentimes not that easy to like distinguish what, like who does what. I feel like, in a broader definition, yeah, revenue ops actually also do marketing analytics or, sales analytics. At the same time, it also does like the systems and managing like Salesforce and probably also manage like HubSpot. At the same time, right, like there's more and more companies are centralizing their data into, let's say, a Snowflake or like a central data warehouse. But that is typically done by data engineers, right? Like a data team versus like an ops team. So it's like, I think there's still quite of a, like even in my mind, right, is like, should this work be done by data team or should it be done by a RevOps team?
I guess there's no single correct answer. A lot of companies, they grow up in different paths. So, different data or system were managed by different teams for historical reasons. It is not easy to change the ownership of those things and to centralize everything. So in those cases, revenue operation will, instead of being the owner of those systems and process, should be the facilitator. And when they try to drive an initiative, they will try to conduct a certain analysis. They should ask for the owner of those assets for help and collaborate. Yeah, so I guess essentially, the revenue operation team is not supposed to be the owner of all of these three pillars: planning, system, and analytics, but instead it should be the glue of the organization, bringing together these resources and bringing together all the teams in order to conduct those tasks.
I also have a hot take.
Sure, go.
I'm curious. So this is not planned, but like I have a hot take that I think a lot of the functional leaders, like the marketing leader, the sales leader, when they're not super like a data driven or technical, they almost like outsource that capability or requirement to the RevOps function, so that like for example, like the deal desk review, right? Like in my mind, like the sales leader should be running it. Like the RevOps can provide the data, but like the sales leader should be running those like deal reviews, because like that's a core of the function. So it's like, is functional leaders like more and more outsourcing their core like capabilities to the RevOps function or the analytics function, or reduce the almost the requirement for them to actually do that work? What's your opinion about it?
I guess it depends. Of course, the sales team wants to outsource those backend activities to someone so that they can focus on everything customer facing, right? So that's understandable. And in other times, they want to take those tasks back in order to gain deeper understanding of the customer or the deal. So I think from the revenue operation perspective, we have to be a little bit flexible and allow the fluidity of the scope. Sometimes, well, we just have to support the revenue leaders the way they prefer. Sometimes we, as a revenue operation, also lead some of these initiatives. Let me give you an example. At a touring video, at one time we were trying to acquire large grocery retailers as our targeted customers. So my team started a account-based marketing campaign, bringing all of the participants in the same project. My team started by identifying those targeted customers, coming up with the ideal customer profile, and pull up a list of grocery retailers that runs the risk of violating workplace safety regulations. And then the sales team will reach out to identify the key decision makers in these prospects' decision chain. They would also investigate what are the key issues these decision makers care about. And based on the information they found out, our marketing team will craft personalized messaging that will highlight our product's impact on their KPI and our product's return of investment. The engineering team also conducted the demonstration, making sure the customer understands our technical capability. And the revenue operation team basically serves as a project management team. We coordinate with these different functions, ensuring everything happened at the right time from the inception to the deal close. We help remove the barriers for our internal stakeholders and sometimes celebrate their success. And eventually we were able to close a deal of 2.5 million. So in that case, there's a lot of overlap and the cross between our roles and responsibilities. I would say it really depends on the situation and the setup of the company. But revenue operation do not want to hold on, get hung up on any particular task and claim ownership. We want to support these go-to-market functions and our internal stakeholders the way they prefer.
Got it. I learned so much today. So this is Holly, to your point, I that actually reminds me a few exactly the situations I've seen that handle the situation very differently. So I work with the head of sales leader who are hyper quantitative, right? He runs record all the funnels, analyze, understand, look into the deals in the Salesforce, right? He actually go to the Excel, right, to look at a forecast at his own time and run everything. And whereas at the time I was helping build some of these score, build a little bit of predictive modeling, making the forecast a little bit more accurate. That's outside of that his skill set. But there were also situations where the sales leader were very much of occupied by talking to the customer, right? Hey, why the conversion time is longer than expected, right? What we can do, and also the sales leader were busy playing the thought leadership, right? Preparing for webinars and the hiring at the time. There were definitely folks who were not, that leader definitely didn't have time to look into, hey, why the Salesforce couldn't even track the funnels, go from all the leads to opportunities all the way down, right? There were data broken all over the place, right? We can and also there were frustrations on, hey, how should we exactly define our customer into tier 1, 2, 3, 4 groups, right? What does this data say? Can you guys tell us distribution? So it could be a lot of things. And at that time, I definitely see the revenue ops plus, right? My analytics were taking a bigger responsibility to help out the sales leader because there were just enormous things going on. If so that does, so I'm also practicing that, right? Again, without aware of this. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example, Bei. I think from revenue operation perspective, we have to, well, if we get started, we have to earn our credibility through supporting these functional leaders by fixing issues in the process, by fixing data in the system and stuff like that. Once we get those basic tasks covered, we can move up the value chain and provide more value on the strategic dimension. For example, derive insights from the data, recommending a strategy, coordinating a campaign, and stuff like that. So revenue operation seems like a very tactical function that has a huge collection of tasks, but I do believe there's an opportunity for us to make a contribution strategically, but only by delving into the execution and understanding the details can we make a contribution on the strategic dimension.
That makes sense. It's like, it's a function that needs to be very flexible and adaptive according to the business need, the functional leaders need. And there could be evolution from like a tactical to strategic. That makes a lot of sense.
Totally.
And a final question, I guess, Daniel, what are some common mistakes that you've seen founders or companies make when it comes to revenue ops?
Several things I can think of. Common mistakes. Number one is adopting too many systems and try to build too many automations too early. Because the business need may change, so you want to be able to change the process and system relatively easily. And to keep up with the business need, you don't want to build too many things that becomes rigid. However, there is a proliferation of revenue operation tools on the market, creating temptation for us to use. That could be a problem. But I believe in the next few years, there's going to be a consolidation in this revenue tools space. So the second thing we want to avoid is to create data silo. As I mentioned in the previous example, you want a single source of truth. You don't want data to reside in different systems or across the different platforms and stuff like that. And number three, as we discussed before, the foundation for revenue operation is a collection of supporting tasks that could become very tactical. So a common mistake for revenue operation leaders can make is to take on too much responsibility on his shoulder all at once. In order to support those go-to-market teams, revenue operation may receive requests on a daily basis. So it is important to prioritize. I would also recommend revenue operation leaders to come up with a RevOps roadmap, laying out what process, what features are going to be implemented in a point in the future, and share this roadmap with the stakeholders and get their buy-in. So this way, the go-to-market teams know, well, okay, 6 months from today, the process that I need will be implemented, and I'm going to feel assured. So by doing this, revenue operation leaders can avoid drowning in requests. So those are my 3 recommendations, what to avoid.
Thank you so much, Daniel. This has been such an informative conversation. I learned so much. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Holly and Bei, for having me. Yeah, I'm also excited to be part of the ExponentialX Advisor Network. You know, I'm all about sharing best practices and disseminating learning throughout the community. So looking forward to more of these webinars.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for sharing. Great learning. Great learning.
Thank you.